Hi, I'm Melissa with the Singing Suitcase, and I'm so glad you joined our masterclass today. I have so many things to tell you about points and miles and getting started in this hobby. This really is your shortcut to free travel. So many people say, I want to travel, I want to see the world, but we don't have the money to do it, especially not with kids. And this is the way to make that happen. So let's dive in. In our masterclass, this is an introduction to points and miles and how you can get started and start leveraging credit card points and airline miles to travel. So some of the things we're going to talk about are for questions, ways to earn banks and the points, choosing cards, and what your next step options are. This is an introductory course, so this is just the beginning. And in future masterclasses, we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper. So this is what's going to get you started. I want to break it down. I want it to be easy, and I want you to be able to follow along and to do the exact steps that I'm going to outline today. I opened my first card in May of 2022 and then referred my husband, and he opened his card. And that was the start of our trips and all the vacations that we have taken now on credit card points and miles, which to date is over $85,000 worth of travel. And we started with just one trip. We wanted to cover some of our costs on a trip to New York City and to snowballed from there. We have been to the Cayman Islands, Italy, New York a few times, Hawaii a few times, San Diego, Napa, Nashville. We've done tons of different trips using points and miles. We never use debit cards anymore. I don't even know where mine is. So this is something I've been working on for several years, and I'm excited to teach you about it too. But this is how we travel. This is how I make travel happen for our family. This is something that we do all the time and not something I just read about, but it's something that we practice. Before we get started, there's some common terms that are used a lot in points and miles. There's like a whole vocabulary that you'll get to know the more that you dive into this. But the first one is a spend. And that is really before you even get started, is to go to your budget and to your bank statements and figure out how much money you spend just in a regular month on groceries, vet bills, sports stuff, all of the things that you do every single month. How much is it that you spend? And add all that up, and then you'll have a number. So let's just, for the sake of ease, say that your spends $5,000 a month. And this is everything that you put on a debit card that you could put on a credit card. So it does not include a mortgage. And there's some bills that don't take credit cards. You have to use them for debit. So don't include those, but everything else that could go on a credit card, add that up, and then you have that number. And that number is really going to be your guide as you get started in points and miles, because that's what's going to help you to meet requirements without overspending. So nothing about this is us wanting to say, let's spend more money than we have so we can get points and miles, because that completely defeats the purpose. We're trying to leverage our everyday spending and turn that into travel. That's a big number. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do, is start there. So the second term is minimum spend. And what that is for a credit card welcome offer, it will say the minimum spend is, let's say, $5,000 in 3 months, which means that if you open this card, in order to get the welcome bonus, you're going to need to spend $5,000 on the card over the next 3 months. Well, if your monthly spend is $5,000, then you know you'll be able to meet that really easily. So every card welcome offer is going to have a minimum spend, and they can vary from one purchase to $30,000. So there's a wide variety of them. And that's going to be important in helping you to create your strategy and helping you to figure out where to start. The next term is an annual fee. And this is a fee that is charged for your credit card in order to have it open with the bank. And they can range from $0 to $795 is what I know of as the highest one right now, $795 a year. And they come with a variety of benefits. There's things that they'll include with that, but that's what that is. It's the amount of money you have to spend every year to keep that credit card opened. The fourth term is an authorized user. And what that means is that when you open a credit card, oftentimes at the bottom it'll say, is there anyone else you want to add to this account? And oftentimes we think, sure, I'll just add my partner. Then they get a card in their name and it's the same account. For this hobby, you don't ever want to do that because then that person is oftentimes not eligible to open the same card. And to really leverage getting more and more points and miles, everybody's going to want to have their own cards. So in our house, I have all of my own cards and my husband has all of his own cards. Even though our finances are combined and even though when it asks for our income, I use both of our incomes, but that credit card account is only mine and only his. And lastly, points versus miles. Sometimes they're used interchangeably, and we'll go into this in a few minutes, but points tend to be like bank or just a term that a company has chosen to say these are what our points are called, like America calls their points membership rewards. So they all kind of have names. Miles tend to be more with airlines, but again, they can be with any of them. So before you even get started, one of the things we talked about, there's I think some questions that you can ask yourself. First of all, is what are your travel plans and your dreams? And maybe it's your dreams and then the plans you'd like to make. But is there a trip coming up that you would really love some help making it possible? Is there a trip you've always dreamed of taking? Is it an anniversary in the next couple of years and you want to be able to take a big trip, but you don't want to pay cash for all of it? Start with down some ideas of what are your travel plans and your travel dreams. And it's a great place to start because collecting miles for the sake of collecting them isn't always helpful. You want to collect them with a plan and be earning them with a reason in mind. The second question is what we talked about earlier is what is your monthly spend? So that means if you can, out of everything that could be put on a credit card that you spend regularly every single month, then what is that number? Another thing that's kind of helpful to know, and this is just kind of a bonus, but is there, we have insurance, our car insurance, and we pay it twice a year. And so maybe it's $1,000 twice a year. Knowing some of those things and how they fall throughout the year is also really helpful because oftentimes you can time that with a card opening if you're interested in that. And then the third question to ask yourself before you get started is what is your credit card comfort level? So many of us grew up in a world where we hear credit card is bad, credit cards are bad, don't open credit cards, it'll your credit, it's really bad. In the family I grew up in, my parents had one credit card that they shared and they only had it for emergencies and that's all that they used it. So if that's kind of your mentality and you really are very anti credit card, then this, first of all, might not be the hobby for you. Or second of all, it might take some just education of how it works and being able to look at that. So I've opened a lot of credit cards over the last 3 years. My credit has never dipped below 800. So, and that's the same thing with my husband. So we both have very high credit scores and we also have a lot of available credit. That doesn't mean that we are in debt. We just have a lot of available credit. So that's just one thing for you to think about. If you're okay with credit and your partner is not okay with credit, then that might be a good conversation to have before you even get started and to really educate yourself on the system and why that works. This is all completely legal. It's completely above the board. It's just using the system to our advantage. So here's some important ground rules before we go any further. One is if you can't pay your credit card balance in full every month, then this is not the hobby for you. We do not promote credit card debt. We do not want you to be in debt. We are not looking to pay interest to credit card companies. That's how they get us. So we don't want to pay them that money. I'm okay paying them the annual fees to use their cards and their benefits, but I'm not okay using it to pay interest. So if you can't pay your monthly credit card every month, then we can stop here and let me know and I'll refund your money. But if you can pay your credit card every month, then let's keep going. The other thing I want to say for ground rules is you do you. It's really easy to FOMO in this hobby to just do points and points and points and points and points and get yourself in over your head and it just doesn't always go well. So, you know what? One good redemption that matches your comfort level is fantastic. If you have one trip and one flight you want to do and that's all, then I think that's great. Then that's what you should do. So now that we've gone over some terms, some questions before you get started, and some ground rules, let's keep going. There are two ways to earn credit card points and miles. One of them is a game and the other one is a bit faster. So the one is the what we call the slow burn. And that means that you have opened a card with a bank. This is a credit union bank example. And you put everything on that credit card, which is great. You put everything on that card, which is great. And then you're going to earn points based on your spending, which means in the example of this card, if you get 3 times the points on dining, then that means if you go out to dinner, you spend $100, you get 300 points. So if you would take all of your monthly expenses, you'd put it on there, you'd use the spending categories, and then you'd add it up. Then in a couple of years, you might have enough points to be able to transfer something. This is great for people who are wanting to do kind of a game but don't want to open up lots of cards. Then what we would do is find you a card that has the best possible earning categories for your spending. And that way you can maximize all of your monthly spending on one card. But the faster way to do it and the way that gets you where you want to go quicker is a welcome offer. And that's what we tend to do. So we open a card when there is a great welcome offer. Like here's an example from a Capital One that you got a $250 credit your first year plus 75,000 miles if you spent $4,000 in 3 months. So Capital One points are worth a lot. You can transfer them to lots of great people, you can transfer them to a lot of different places. And so you would, in this way of earning, you would open this card, you would meet the minimum spend, the $4,000, you would get the 75,000 bonus miles, and then you would move on to a new card. So you're not opening them and necessarily continuing to use them heavily long term, but you go from welcome offer to welcome offer. This is a good place to look at where your credit comfort level is, because if you are uncomfortable with credit cards, then you're going to want to maximize this slow burn process. If you are more okay with welcome offers, then you would tend to lean more towards that strategy. There's also definitely a combination of both, just depending on what your goals are. There are 4 major banks that offer credit cards with points and miles: Chase Bank, Citibank, Capital One Bank, and American Express. There's also some cards that come from Barclays and Bank of America, but these are really the 4 major players in banks that will authorize credit cards and that have these different programs to help with travel. Another thing to look at is that all points are not the same. So I like to use an example. One of them is if you're looking at brand specific points, that's kind of like the color and number cards. There are things like hotel chains, a specific airline, cruise lines, stores. The rewards you get are stuck in that program. So if you have a Delta Airlines card and you're earning Delta miles, those miles stay in Delta. Or if you have a Gap card, then your Gap rewards stay in Gap. Transferable points, however, are like wild cards. They can go to lots of different places and they can be lots of different things. So as you can imagine, each of those transferable points is actually worth more and oftentimes more helpful because they can go to many different things than one brand specific point. There's time and a place for both of them, but by and large, the transferable points are more desirable. Both and American Express offer co-branded cards. So they're going to say like Hyatt is co-branded with from Chase Bank. So you can get a Hyatt hotel card through Chase Bank. So those are the 2 that do most. Barclays and Bank of America both do as well, but not as many. Each point then is going to have transfer partners. So you get this stash of wild cards, these transferable points, and then each bank, depending on it, has transfer partners. So my favorite transfer partners through Chase Bank are Hyatt Hotels, Southwest Airlines, IHG Hotels, and United Airlines. Those four are really helpful. Most banks have at least some overlap on the transfer partners that you have. So when we flew saving points to fly class flights to Italy, we transferred points from lots of different banks in order to be able to have enough points to make those flights. You usually get better value from your points by transferring them than using the bank portal. So all of these banks have a travel portal that they use that you purchase travel through with your points or with cash. Most of the time, you're going to be able to get a better value doing it that way. So here's an example. I had 28,000 Chase points and I need a hotel room for one night in Orlando. So I looked in the Chase portal, and if I used all 28,000 of my points, I would still have to pay $348 to book this one night. If I was going to pay cash for it on the Hyatt website, it was about $675. Instead, I was able to transfer my points from Chase to Hyatt, and I was able to book that room for 23,000 points. So that was the best redemption. I got the whole night covered with my points. I still had some left over and I didn't have to pay cash. And those points ended up being worth about $700. So, which is best for me? I think the things that you want to look at is what is your goal? Where do you want to go? And how much flexibility do you want? So if your goal is to one trip and to make that happen, then you're going to decide which cards you're going to want to use. So here's an example of mine they wanted to go to Europe this winter and they just wanted to cover their flights and they really wanted to fly business class or at least premium economy. And so they opened she one card, met the minimum spend with just their monthly expenses. Her partner opened up his card. He met his minimum spend. They combined their points together and they were able to transfer them to France and they were able to book 2 round trip tickets from the West Coast to Paris nonstop in premium economy, and all they paid was taxes and fees. That was their goal, that they knew where they wanted to go. They knew what their goal was, and we were able to get them just in 2 cards to be able to fly. We wanted them to I didn't want them to open Air France cards because what if there was a really good sale in one of the other transfer partners? And so we did Capital Miles that had several options for airlines, and it gave us some flexibility when the time came to book the flights if they were really the best flights. Right now in our family, we're trying to figure out what our next trip is and how we want to use our points and miles. So we've got some funny little stashes of things. We really want to take our kids to Europe next summer to see the alpine playgrounds in Switzerland. And so I'm looking at points that are going to help us with our flights and with our hotels, because that's usually my goal, is that every trip has at least flights and hotels covered amid them as much as we can. So I'm looking at banks that have transfer partners that have usually good redemptions from the West Coast to Europe, and then different hotels in the cities that we want to visit. So that's how I'm mapping out my trip, is I'm saying I have this goal. My goal is to do air and hotels, and where we're going to Europe. And how much flexibility do I want? I want quite a bit, because I want to have some hotel options in all of the different the brands. So in case we're in a small town and they don't have a Hyatt hotel, but they might have a Hilton, then I'll be able to use it that way. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. This has been a really simple explanation of points and miles, and there are many more things that are important to know if you're going to do more than just one card, one redemption. So I will have a new masterclass coming soon that talks about how often do you apply, some of the rules that each of the banks have, the biggest one being the Chase 524 rule, how you authorize users, transfer partners, business cards. All of those things are really important and kind of what it is that you want to do with your points and miles. So watch for that coming soon. So thanks for signing up for this masterclass, and I will send you on your minimum spend and also one that looks just like this about what are your travel goals and your timeline and how much you want to invest in learning all of this. So these are good things to help you kind of what it is that you want to do. I think it really does take some planning and some forethought to see kind of how to do that. So really start to brainstorm, really create your bucket list. I have a great bucket list guide you can use with your family, and it really guides your family through some different questions to come up with your own bucket list. And that is available. You can send me an email and I'd be happy to send you, or it'll be up soon in my online store. So take some time to do some dreaming, to do some brainstorming before you start applying so that you're applying smart and you're making that the best of those redemptions. So here are some next steps and the options that you have. You can take my upcoming masterclass that will dive in deeper, and just send me an email that you want 2.0 and I'll make sure you get that. If you need some hands-on help, I have concierge services available. I do coaching for people to guide you on what you want to do and how you want to do it. With my last client, the ones who just went to Europe, we did a coaching session where we figured out their strategy. Once they had all their points, I did some research for them and then I walked them through booking it. I was able to help them with that first redemption. So I do either one-off coaching sessions or also consistent coaching to help you with that. So make sure you check out my Points and Miles Instagram at All Hail the Travel Queen, and on YouTube, where I do tutorials about how you can always be you getting more points and miles without opening cards and different ways of being able to do that. If you have any questions, be sure to email me. It's melissa@thesingingsuitcase.com. You can check out my website at thesingingsuitcase.com. It has lots of information there about booking trips. If you want to just book your dream trip after you have your points and miles, or we get your flights free and then you need help booking your hotels, I would be happy to do that. Happy to save you the time and the money on finding out what your best redemptions are. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and can't wait to see where points take you.